Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Hughes Showcase session today. My name is Natalia Vicente, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs and Communications at ESOA, and I'm delighted that Hughes has invited ESOA to moderate this session. We have been discussing for the last couple of days about all the spectrum matters and agenda items in preparation for WRC 23, but today we are going to hear from the satellite operators Hughes Network Systems how their services impact connectivity around the CIS region and how important it is for regulators to protect existing and future services when making spectrum decisions. Let me directly introduce our speaker today, Konstantin Lanin, Regional Director for Russia and the CIS business at Hughes. Without further ado, I will hand over and I would invite everyone watching to post their comments and questions on the chat that we will take after his presentation. The floor is yours, Konstantin.
Thank you, Natalie, and I'm very thankful for the great opportunity to speak in front of such an audience. And before we're discussing on satellite technology and what can do satellite today, I would like to show you a short video to understand and show the size of the country we talk about in Russia and some few examples of what people do today.
It is a vast land, making up 3/4 of all of Russia. It is an empty land where fewer than 1 in 4 Russians live. Notorious for long, harsh winters, but rich in gold and diamonds, oil and coal. It is Siberia, where the city of Yakutsk claims to be the coldest in the world, where winter temperatures hover around -40 degrees. More than half of Siberians live in cities like this, but leave those cities and you come face to face with the land. Millions of square miles of plains, mountains, lakes, and swamps, frozen hard in winter, coming to green life in the short summers. Here, people live in small towns and villages scattered across the land. Isolation can be harsher than the winter wind. It cuts people off from family and friends. It robs them of access to services, to work and education. Distance destroys the connections that make a good life, except for connections by satellite. A company called Hughes Network Systems has equipped 1,300 towns and villages across Siberia with its community Wi-Fi hotspots. Hughes works with Russian communications companies to install satellite terminals and Wi-Fi access points that offer affordable neighborhood service to more than 300,000 people. For most of them, it is the first internet connection they have ever had. It brings them public services and online education, work opportunities, and connection to distant family and friends. It makes Siberia part of a vibrant online community circling the globe. And Siberians have a lot to offer the world. They are a strong people who speak their minds with a rich culture forged in hardship. They work hard, and they know how to play hard as well. Siberians don't let their challenging climate slow them down. Hughes, its Russian partners, and a little bit of satellite are making sure that distance doesn't either. Satellite, the world's invisible, indispensable technology. Brought to you by Space and Satellite Professionals International with the support of Hughes Network Systems. Additional support provided by AVL Technologies and Artel.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that short presentation of Russia and a couple of our key customers and partners, KB and Altegra Sky, who are implemented and basically stand behind to eliminate digital divide in those remote areas. So to start my presentation, I'd like to give you a feeling on what technology innovation can do to bridge digital divide. And as we'll see on the next slide, we all know that fiber is a great solution. Absolutely no doubt when you can get it. But looking at the chart, which was done by ITU analysis, we can see that even it's a little bit old, it's still give a good feeling that billions of people live outside of reach of fiber, and it should be some other technologies in place in order to bring the valuable and quality services to those areas. On the next slide, probably shows the true reason why the fiber cannot be placed everywhere. And we look at the broadband, U.S. Department of Commerce of United States made this assumption. It shows that the hardware only would cost probably from anything from $2,600 to $21,000 per mile, which basically represent in kilometers maybe $1,600 to $13,000 per kilometer, if you wish. And on the next slide, please, we'll see that someone will tell us, oh, okay, great. So the fiber is too expensive. So we have 4G and 5G technology to replace it and reach all these areas. But again, looking on this chart is, I believe you'll find it interesting that on the hardware side only, depending on the heights of the tower, depending on different types of batteries you need and transceiver power. So microwave hop, which is 2 location, may cost you anything from $11,000 to almost $100,000. And generally what it says that if you'll be using this backhauling solution with using microwave, more than one microwave hop will kill any type of business case you may work out. So on the next slide, we see that hardware was the only problem on the price-wise, but we didn't spoke on the other challenges like infrastructure, like CapEx, OpEx. In order to bring all this hardware equipment to the remote area, you may require sometimes even helicopters. And can you imagine of doing a civil works on those remote areas when you need to deliver everything either by winter roads or by helicopter wise? So all of this, on the next slide, please, we'll see that the satellite may address those challenges. And I very briefly touch upon it. Why is satellite? And what technologies can bring the satellite? What solution can bring the satellite in place to eliminate digital divide? Next slide, please. As you see, the most simple way is architecture. You need a gateway installed at any place or city where you have a very good internet backbone connection. And you have remote terminals which are placed all over the footprint of the satellite. The only condition you need is a direct sign of light on the satellite side. So it's not from the forest, it's not on the big mount, but all other places are suitable for those installation sites. And the next slide shows us that technology today can bring you 300, 200 megabits downloads directly to your LAN. So it's a technology and speeds we never thought even maybe 10 years ago, even back. Today, you can do on a return channel up to 50 megabit per second, depending on your needs and application. And you support thousands and thousands of simultaneous TCP/IP sessions, which is a spoofed, optimized TCP protocols to optimize for the satellite delivery. So it's a feeling that you're really using almost a fiber type of connection. And the next slide show us that there are different approaches you may use. For example, for the Wi-Fi solution using satellite as a backbone, there are two main approaches. One is community Wi-Fi for the public use. So you do Wi-Fi hotspot. It is very popular in such countries like Indonesia or Mexico. PSN as a service provider in Indonesia has like 3,000 sites installed of the hotspot. And Mexico is government financed and it's subsidized. That we built together with them 4,000 hotspot locations where people come and can hourly, per hour, per day, per month can do the broadband internet. Whereas in Russia we have a different little bit story. So we use community Wi-Fi for the private use, and such companies like Altegra Sky, Kibiiskr, they doing their service sort of a shared VSAT, when the one VSAT can serve 15 to 30 households, and we talk about it later on the case study slides. Next slide, please. Going forward, and we know that in most of the places, voice and data is the most important, and as we showed you, the hops on microwave, the set, which is basically, by the way, 30 to 40 kilometers. The satellite can do hundreds of kilometers away to do backbone for their base stations on the 4G, maybe 5G even today. Both of these standards are in place, and we know how to optimize the data transmission and do backhaul over satellite for such an application. So in this case, the satellite, you can imagine, it works as an umbrella to interconnect remote cells to the main core mobile network to provide the services. And next slide, please. We'll do evaluation of the cost and economics of the satellite. You remember at the beginning, I was telling you the story on the economics on terrestrial for the fiber and microwave. So the satellite is, first of all, CapEx investment per site is much less than $2,000, much less. The service plan can go either from $30 to $40 a month. And bringing new satellite, new high throughput satellites designed for data. Even today is a new definition is a very high throughput satellite. I put an example for you is a Jupiter 3 Hughes Echostar satellite, which will be as powerful as almost goes to close to terabit of throughput. And that satellite we expect to launch next year, and it brings the broadband connectivity to almost up to 100 megabit service plans per household in North America. So basically, why it's and it's at affordable price. So that's a true solution, and that it's true. Not even, I don't know, I'm trying to escape this, name it as a competition to fiber, but it's definitely technologies which coexist together and could benefit from each other. So the next slide will show you a few case study, as you heard, you saw in the video, and I mentioned already. So one is the KB Iskra, the company which works over 5 satellites in K-band and KU-band, and I believe even in C-band as well. And they provide their services to the either government and the social programs, and of course remote areas where the service plan can start at about 1,500 rubles, which basically is almost same as $20. It is basically starts from $20. And they have today almost 37,000 subscribers, providing the shared VSAT, as I mentioned. So it's about 15 to 30 people, households per VSAT station. On the pictures, you may see that it's consists of VSAT and Wi-Fi mast, plus user router, which has a direct line of sight with this Wi-Fi mast. So that's the way how they structure it. And basically, most of the applications is social media, YouTube, Instagram, and internet browsing. Next slide, please. On another case study is the two companies, sister companies together, K-Internet and Raduga. So they working over 10 satellites, and they also focused on K-band and KU-band services. I just give you an example of service plans. They call it simple, equal, no limits. It starts from 100 ruble a month for very simple application. And it goes 4,000 plus for the true business-oriented services. The customers have a range from government, consumer, wholesale to other VSAT operators. So it's quite an interesting portfolio for this company. If you look at the third example on the case study, next slide, it's example of the government applications in Kazakhstan. So the company called Kazteleradio, and they do digital TV broadcast over the country. And the purpose is that they built the entire network using Hughes HX technology to monitor digital transmission to ensure that their availability and delivery to every single household is working properly. So that's a very interesting example of satellite technology application based on two gateways with geographical redundancy in Nur Sultan and Almaty, which is just shows the importance of the monitoring of TV signal distribution for this country. On a fourth example, we'll travel to Azerbaijan with you. So the company called Delta Telecom, probably the only VSAT service provider in the country. They're using Azerspace 1 satellite in KU band. And just this year, we upgrade them to the latest and greatest Jupiter platform, supporting layer 2 application, communication on the move, for 3G, GSM, 4G backhauling optimization. So they focused on the government networks, oil exploration, mining, with the services anything from 30 megabits download per site. And last but not least, fifth example of Altegra Sky Group, as we started also video with. It's a good example on a very remote Komi Republic, cold places. as much as Yakutsk, but 34 rural towns with support of MTS, they were interconnected in almost no time, in 3 months, supporting femtocells that provide their service inside the buildings using Hughes technology, micro-OTIC routers, femtocells provided by MTS, and with the focus on voice services, messages, internet browsing, YouTube, government, social media. So all of these examples, so that's the last my slide, which show that we're ready and stand by for the battle to eliminate digital divide on the planet. And with the help of our partners, with the help of Hughes technology, with support of you people. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. First of all, let me just remind the participants to post their questions on the chat or any comments that they may have, and we will bring them to Konstantin, to our speaker. But let me start with some questions of mine. We've seen many examples, and it's clear that the CIS is home to both larger and smaller operators, including RSCC, Gazprom Space System, Acer Cosmos, and operators from other regions even provide services here too. So why is the CIS such an attractive market for satellite operators?
Natalie, thank you. It's a great question. It's just don't forget that we talk about 1/6 of the Earth. And the territory is just as generally speaking, it's about 10 hours flight from west to east, and about 5 hours flight from north to south. So the territory which you cannot think of non-satellite solution only. And as I mentioned that in fact there is no single satellite which can cover entire territory. So you need at least 2 satellites from different orbital slots to close the entire country. So, and yes, it's not only Russian satellite service providers, there are also European, American, and there are a lot of capacity needed, not only for the data. Of course, the satellite driven by TV distribution for the first half. And we believe that the demand will be only growing.
I feel it's amazing and it's impressive. Even watching the video, for me, I've only visited Moscow, so I don't know Russia at all, so even the CIS region. So it's impressive to see how the geography changes and how difficult it is to reach all those isolated areas. But you have mentioned a lot of use cases on how are you, Hughes, trying to connect everyone. And these services are clearly life-changing because they are bringing these people into society, into services that otherwise they would not be allowed to have. But what are the challenges that you are facing to replicate these kind of projects or these kind of services in other areas of the region?
You see, Natalie, it's first of all, I may say that we're working hard in all of these directions in all regions of Russia, and thanks to their government initiative, which basically called the Digital Russia, there are number of programs which are supported by the government, which are supported and involved with supported by key VSAT players on the market, and I just give you can give you examples. So there are thousands of schools to be upgraded to the high speed of internet, and 1,000 means about 25,000 to be exact. There are in Russian, it's called FAP. In English, that would call like a remote medical office, which consists of a doctor, the nurse, and some maternity nurse also. So it's and also 25,000, and they're located all over remote areas where no communications at all. So they and satellite connectivity, most of them, of course, getting connected by fiber where it's possible, but there are many locations, and we expect that would be all these projects developing as we speak, even this year. It would be developing even next year as well. But apart from those two, we have government local offices, we have libraries, we have towns which population starts from 100 people. So all of these places attract attention from the government side. There is a objection aimed to eliminate digital divide at least by 97% of those remote locations by 2024. And we do believe that the satellite will be definitely playing big role in all these initiatives.
I see. It's something that comes many times, how it is important for countries and governments to make digital and bridging the digital divide a priority in their communities to help their citizens. But we always come across some comments, and we always receive this comment in many cases of, but satellite is too expensive. And we see that with all the innovation, especially Hughes, you have Jupiter 3 satellites, and it's clearly very sophisticated and it's providing services and a high-level technology. And it's therefore, how do we manage to provide these services at a price that is affordable for the market, or is satellite just for the wealthy?
You saw in my case studies that service plans, for example, Raduga Internet, they introduced it starting even from 100 rubles, which is probably very low expectation, but the average is $20 to $30. That's a decent service plan most of people and most of families can afford. From the hardware standpoint, I always like to show this nice device. Most of people in the audience have it, and Visat today costs twice less than that. So it's not for oil and gold miners any longer. It's for true simple people. The service available today, you can go today to the service providers and buy the satellite hardware and service. It's very affordable price. I believe no one can doubt.
It's interesting because I think there's still a lot of myths around satellite technology and connectivity and the price of it, or any of the other things that we have heard for years, that we are breaking them, but we still need to show and raise awareness about it, because the customers that are able to receive these services clearly changes their lives, and it's coming from no connectivity to connectivity. In just a few simple weeks, and it's being able to connect to social media, as you said, or even being able to watch videos on YouTube. I think it's those things that make you feel part of the whole ecosystem, no? We have seen examples throughout your presentation, and I'm keeping on the questions because I see that our audience needs to wake up a bit if they want to ask some questions. But I've seen some examples, and you have talked about some examples about satellite providing direct broadband connectivity, or as well as satellites technology collaborating to provide backhaul or power community Wi-Fi solutions. We see that more and more there is a collaboration between technologies, and it's not new, but it's gaining a certain momentum, all this collaboration between technologies, because it's clear that no one technology is going to solve every problem. And it's not going to achieve the connectivity goals for sure. So can you elaborate a bit and explain a bit more about the plans to integrate satellite and terrestrial?
Thank you for your question. It's probably we need another hour to really go on detail to explain all of that. But to make long story a little bit short, as I can tell you that Hughes position equipment and technology and our following steps as like Jupiter is a not only it's a multi-satellite, multi-transport platform. So you may heard, and maybe it was discussed within the conference also, that there are low orbit satellite projects. There are medium orbit satellite. There are geostationary satellites. And there is a terrestrial, and there is a 5G, and we believe that 5G is adopting the satellite technology as a part of the standard. So in order to deploy 5G in all those remote areas, the satellite will play the role of their backbone solution versus microwaves or fiber. And today, we're already developing terminals, modems, which can, and you saw on the screens, there was artificial intelligence powered by the technology. So all of this we're using today. And the terminal, the modems, would be automatically able to detect which path to go, whether it's go to LEO satellite, MEO satellite, geostationary satellite, or terrestrial 5G. So that's intelligence would be inside of their basically equipment to determine the most optimal transport to be used for particular applications. And yes, so that's the future. That's what we up to, and we position as a multi-transport technology. Jupiter would help solve all these problems.
I find it very interesting, and I completely agree with what you're saying. And we see that the work that's been done in the last few years with 3GPP and the standards of 5G clearly talk about this component of satellite when we talk about 5G. And now that we hear people talking about, and regulators talking about 6G, they are clearly thinking about satellite directly inside 6G, because otherwise it would not make sense. So I think the mindsets are changing a bit. However, I hope it goes fast enough so that we are able to reach our goals, because we still often hear that terrestrial 5G has the potential to bridge the digital divide, actually. And as you are saying, as long as we don't talk about satellite as the backbone, that's not going to be a possibility. And terrestrial solutions alone will not be able to connect everyone. The CIS, as you show on your video, represents a massive landmass, and it is clear, and from what you are saying, satellite will play a major role in the next 10 years, especially with the connectivity goals that we have for 2030. I see that you said mentioned already 2024. That is just 2 years from now. So we need to really deploy and deliver fast. But for the connectivity goals that we have for 2030, what needs to happen to actually achieve those goals? What needs to change in the region, also globally, but for sure in the CIS region, to reach those goals of connectivity? What do we need to do? What would you ask for?
Well, one of the biggest issues, what I see, for example, in CIS countries, is it was exactly what you were asking in your previous questions as well. Is the satellite only for the wealthy and big enterprises and so on? The problem we face is a lack of the publicity, the lack of information, the lack of So the people, if you just stop someone on the street and ask the question on the satellite, the people won't even believe that it exists at an affordable price. So we need to do more, not advertising, but deliver the message, deliver the information. So the people would be aware that, yes, such technology exists and it's affordable and it's will help to solve the problem in a very quick and understandable time frame and money-wise manner. So, for example, we have a few satellites in K-band these days. And with K-band, significant low cost per bit, we'll be able to introduce very affordable service plan at very attractive data rates. And again, we thought it would be hundred thousands of users in Russia. Unfortunately, it's not. Probably if you put everyone's together, maybe we will reach maybe 50,000 between all players. And expectations are much, much higher. Why? Because people do not aware. Because we're trying to bring it to the market. So unfortunately, not at that speed which we see in North America or even Latin America. But hopefully, with all these government initiatives and private initiatives, we'll make these things happen.
So one of the things that has been mentioned to me in the last, during this confinement and during the pandemic, that we have been doing all these webinars, we've seen some pictures actually from Hughes in Latin America, and the installers cover the long areas in Latin America with the dishes on their back, and they ride the horse until they manage to arrive to the place where they have to install it. So I cannot imagine how would they do it in regions so cold as in the CIS region as in Russia. But do you have any information or any numbers of how many installers do you have in the region, and how do they manage to reach those areas and to enable the number of connections in this market?
Great question. You won't believe, but sometimes they use deers, and they use boats, and they use and helicopters and small airplanes. But wintertime, deers works pretty well to deliver it, and there are pictures on that. Sometimes one day I'll share it with you. So the number of installers, the companies, the small companies, probably in the range of 700 to 900 companies, which they're used by, say, most all players in this market. And it's true. It's either you need 4x4 monster truck, or you need helicopter or deer to bring it to a horse, to bring it to some places. And at the time when it's really, I remember the initial project for schools, because we had a few stages. We had the now I mentioned you schools, but it's upgrade to say 100 megabit per second connectivity. Before it was a school with a 10 megabit per second connectivity per school, and that was over like in 2008. And it was an objective to build 30,000 schools in almost in 1 year. People did miracle jobs in order to reach all these places, using all means to bring it, deliver it, power it, and make the service work.
I think this is impressive, and it's amazing to even imagine it, because precisely those places that are so difficult to reach, and it's already an effort to manage to provide this solution, and it's the simplest way, and it changes. I suppose it will, from my experience, it will only take a few weeks or to provide those solutions, and to be able to connect schools, or to be able to connect people, especially now with the pandemic and how we have lived, all of us. I mean, I'm home, and I think many of us are still home, and it is something that it has become a need for every one of us to access services of e-health and school and education, and not stop society. I can imagine that in these regions, it is exactly the same. I've been asked at some times, but people that didn't have connectivity before would not feel the difference if they don't have connectivity now, not like others during the pandemic. And I realize it's not the case, because we didn't have that possibility to go to the places, to go to the school, to go to work, and we have been able to continue. And I'm still, for the last 4 years that I've been working in the sector, I love hearing the stories of the operators, because they actually make you realize how important those decisions that they make during WRC will impact the citizens. No, it's not just about deciding on bans for one or the other, but it's really protecting those services in which citizens are relying for, and otherwise will be disconnected. No, and that's totally what we are not trying to achieve, and what we are trying to fight against. And I really like all the use cases that you brought today. I think it's amazing to see how also the collaboration between technologies is evolving, and it's moving forward. And I hope that for the next few years, this will just get better and better, and we can have more. We can have you in a few years here back and telling us, like, everyone is connected now. It's 2024. We have managed. We did it. 97% of the digital divide is broken, and everyone is connected. But just because we have just a couple of minutes left, I would really like you to close with some final notes and final comments on what do you think it's going to be for the next few years, the challenges, but also the opportunities, and how Hughes is going to be there providing that connectivity to the region, and changing little by little the connectivity reality for many.
Natalie, it's been a really great discussion, and I can tell you that in today's world, in technology that we're working and we're developing, we bringing a true opportunity to win the battle for digital divide globally on the planet, to make it affordable, reliable, broadband everywhere, at any locations and any place. And technology today, it's really breaking all the limits we knew in the past, and providing the services like a terrestrial, very competitive to terrestrial. Is that what our innovation is all about? And we believe that the future is bright. All technologies will exist, and all technologies would be complementary to each other. And we at the satellite world believe that there is no future without satellite, and we will win.
I thank you very much, Konstantin. And with this very positive note, I thank everyone that has participated today in this showcase. And I hope a very good rest of the conference, and hope to see you all soon, especially if we can do it in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Appreciate it. Thank you.